What would you do if the one thing you gave away in love came back to shatter your heart? David's hands trembled as he handed over the keys to his old Mustang, the car he'd spent years restoring. Its cherry red paint gleamed under the afternoon sun, a symbol of his youth, his freedom, and the countless nights he'd spent tinkering in the garage, dreaming of the open road. He loved that car, but he loved Sarah more. She needed it. Their job was across town, and their savings were stretched thin after the baby arrived. "Take it," he'd said, forcing a smile. "It's yours now." Sarah's eyes sparkled with gratitude, and for a moment, David felt like a hero. But life has a way of twisting even the purest acts of love. Months passed, and the Mustang became Sarah's lifeline, ferrying her to work, to grocery runs, to doctor's appointments for their son, Ethan. David didn't mind walking to his mechanic shop or taking the bus. He told himself it was worth it. That family came first. Yet, something gnawed at him, a quiet ache, like a song stuck in his head, just out of reach. Sarah seemed distant, her laughter rarer, her eyes avoiding his at dinner. He chalked it up to stress, to the grind of parenthood, but the unease grew. One rainy evening, David came home early. Sarah was still at work, or so he thought. The house was quiet, Ethan asleep in his crib. Restless, David wandered to the garage, a place he hadn't visited in weeks. The Mustang wasn't there. Of course it was with Sarah. But something drew him inside, a pull he couldn't explain. He flicked on the light, and the familiar smell of oil and metal wrapped around him like an old friend. His tools hung neatly on the wall, untouched. The space felt hollow, like a stage abandoned after a play. Then he saw it. Tucked in the corner, half hidden behind a stack of boxes, was a small wooden crate he didn't recognize. Curious, he pried it open, expecting old junk or forgotten tools. Instead, he found a shoebox, its edges worn and taped shut. His heart thudded as he peeled back the lid. Inside was a collection of things that didn't belong together. A tiny toy car, a folded letter, and a stack of photographs. His breath caught. The toy car was a miniature Mustang, painted cherry red, just like his. Ethan's name was scrawled on the bottom in marker, his son's first car, a gift from David when he was born. The letter was in Sarah's handwriting. David's hands shook as he unfolded it. "I'm sorry," it began. "I didn't know how to tell you." The words blurred as he read on. Sarah wrote of her fear, her exhaustion, her feeling of being trapped. She loved David, she said, but she wasn't herself anymore. She'd been saving money, planning to leave not forever, but for a while, to find herself. The Mustang, she confessed, was part of her plan. She'd sold it weeks ago to a dealer across town, using the money to fund her escape. The car David had poured his heart into was gone, not parked at her workplace as he'd believed. The photographs were the final blow. They showed Sarah and Ethan at a park, a place David didn't recognize. In one, Sarah was laughing, her face brighter than he'd seen in months. A man stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders. David didn't know him, but the intimacy in their smiles cut deeper than any knife. The timestamp on the photos was recent, too recent. David sank to the garage floor, the toy car clutched in his hand. The betrayal wasn't just the car, or even the man in the photos. It was the secrecy, the slow unraveling of the life they'd built together. He thought of Ethan, his innocent giggles, and wondered what kind of future awaited him. Anger surged, then faded into a hollow grief. He'd given Sarah everything, his trust, his dreams, his car, and now he felt like he'd lost them all. But as the rain drummed on the roof, something shifted in David. He looked at the toy car, its paint chipped from Ethan's tiny hands. This, he realized, was what mattered. Not the Mustang, not the past, but the love he still had for his son. Sarah's choices were her own, but David could choose too. He could fight for Ethan, for the family they still might be. The next morning, David called the dealer. The Mustang was gone, sold to someone out of state. He didn't cry. Instead, he went to Ethan's room, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "We'll be okay." He didn't know if Sarah would come back, or if he could forgive her if she did. But he knew he'd keep going, for Ethan, for himself. The garage stayed empty, but David began to fill it again, not with cars, but with moments. He built a small workbench for Ethan, teaching him to hold a wrench, to laugh, to dream. The pain of that shoebox never fully left, but it became a reminder. Love is a risk, but it's the only thing worth building. And sometimes, The things we lose lead us to what we were meant to find.